And speaking about history, we have that's joining us this morning by telephone, Professor Alexander Kitroeff, and he has just written a book on the Greek Orthodox Church in America. Let's see if we have Professor Kitroeff on the line. Professor
Yes,
Kitroeff?
hello.
Hi, good morning. How are you? Welcome to Grecian Echoes and Mondays with Meleti.
Good morning, Meleti. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining. This is very exciting. This new publication that you've done, the Greek Orthodox Church in America, A Modern History. And can you tell us, I don't know if you were listening, but I did a lot of introduction right before our interview, and people should know that you're an esteemed professor of Greek history and culture, and I'm so proud that you've taken on this book. Can you tell us what got you interested? When did you start this whole project?
Well, I've been interested in Greek American history for a long time, but I do remember working for as a historical consultant to film director Maria Iliou, and we did a documentary on Greek Americans back in 2007. It came out in 2007. It was called The Journey.
Oh, it's excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Very, very good. Yeah.
And as I was talking about the Greek Americans, I found myself saying the Greek Orthodox Church is the most important institution in Greek America, and presumably the Greek Orthodox Observer is the most read newspaper, and it is it's an institution. It's not an organization, but I said it has the most influence.
Yeah.
And when you speak in a documentary, you're giving just general information to people. And I thought about what I just said, and I said, yes, it's true, but, I haven't, no one has actually documented this. No one has written about how the church has shaped the course of Greek America and the identity of Greek Americans.
That's very true.
What prompted me.
That's very, very true. It's interesting because when I first saw the title, before I saw that you had written the book and I saw the title, my defenses went up. And I don't know if this is just conditioning or, as projecting sort of the reputation of the true history of the Greek Orthodox Church in America, this defensive kind of thing. I want to get, defend. Wait a minute, who's doing this? And so when I saw that it was you, and I've looked at what you have done most recently in your book with the Greeks of Egypt, that was fascinating. Thank you very, very much for that. And then you and I have spoken a little bit since you came to Boston recently and did a lecture on that book, and and I found out you were doing this one, and it's just. But you were born in Greece, am I correct?
Yes, I was born in Greece, but I only completed second grade middle school, I guess it is, and at age 15th, I moved to England where we had relatives, and I finished high school there, and then did all my university studies in England, bachelor's, MA, and PhD. And then I went back to Greece, and because I still had, a Greek passport, and I hadn't taken out the British citizenship or anything like that, I had to do my military service. So I did, at that time, it was, in fact, 2 years, in fact, even more. It was 25 months. And I did that.
Where were you stationed? I'm just curious. Do you remember?
Yes, that's a story in itself, because I had enough connections to be stationed at the naval base in Salamina, which is quite a spectacular thing to see because it's the major naval base, and it's in the bay where the big naval battle happened in antiquity. But during my second year, my connections became even more helpful, and I moved to the War Museum in Athens to help a naval officer write the history of the Navy. I became a kind of researcher.
Oh, how exciting! That's so. And is that what you studied in college?
At college, I'd done the Greeks in Egypt initially. That was my PhD.
Yes.
But I'd done some of Greek maritime history, and it was good enough for the officers. Kostis Varfis was his name. His brother was a commissioner in the European Union, European Community at the time. He was wonderful, and I had a great time, and I was able to visit archives in Athens and acclimatize myself with the research landscape of Greece while doing my national service. It was an extraordinary privilege.
It really was. And so what was your journey when did you come to this country, and what were your immediate observations of the Greek Orthodox community at that time?
Well, I first came to the United States back in 1978 when there was a major conference. The Modern Greek Studies Association held a conference on the Greek 1940s. It was held in Washington, D.C. I was a graduate student at that time in Britain, but there were very cheap flights with a company which is long defunct. It was called Freddie Laker Airways. And I came over for the conference, and I got connected there with a group of people who used to run what was called the Journal of Hellenic Diaspora. And that was my first connection. And then I came later on, I was invited here by Professor Psommiadis at Queen's College.
Oh, yes.
And to teach at the Byzantine and Modern Greek Studies Center. So I actually lived in Astoria, and I wanted to start researching on the history of Greek Americans. And one of the things I had done when I had researched the Greeks in Egypt as a graduate student, I'd gone to Alexandria and gone to the Patriarchate there, where they had very, very good archives, especially the baptismal records.
Yes.
Were a wonderful, wonderful information, because you got the place of origin of the father, of the mother, of the nuno, the godfather or the godmother, the professions. It was wonderful. So I went over to the Archdiocese and started working. In fact, I was collecting information in the registry, and so I've got a kind of long relationship.
The Archdiocese in New York?
Yes.
And
yes,
did you have a sponsor at that time, or did you just call Nikki or whomever over there and say that?
I met Nikki later on, because I was I went to the registry was upstairs.
Okay.
But when we were working with the documentary with Maria Eliou later on, that's when I met Nikki Calais, who is the most wonderful person, archivist, someone with deep knowledge.
Isn't she a gem? She's she's wonderful. She's been there for years, you know?
She's been there for years, and of course worked very closely with Archbishop Iakovos. So,
yes.
I tell her, instead of just curating the archives here, you should write your own history of your experiences. What
exactly. So when did you start your research for this book?
So this book I started in around 2013. I was trying to think earlier, is it 2013 or 2014, with a very generous grant from the Jaharis Family Foundation.
Wonderful.
Which enabled me to spend time in New York so that I could go to the archive regularly. His Eminence Archbishop Dimitrios gave me permission to work in the archives, and from then on it was just this wonderful experience working with Nikki Calais.
Wow. And in the archives, I've never been there, and I'm just wondering, do they have a lot of printed material, or is there any audio and visual material?
So this is what has happened. First of all, the Archdiocese has kept its archives intact in a very, very careful and conscientious way. Would everyone keep archives the way the Archdiocese does? You see the mass of cardboard boxes, and you realize this is a serious institution, even if you didn't know anything about the Greek Orthodox
Bravo,
Church.
Tus. Bravo. I'm so glad to hear that, Alexander, because, you know, we've talked about this. I've gone into a lot of institutions, and things are not so well cared for. So this is wonderful.
It's wonderful. And what's happened is that the Stavros Niarchos Foundation, thanks to a grant they gave, enabled the Archdiocese to PDF the documents.
Oh, yes, we're seeing a lot of those. So that was Stavros Niarchos Foundation is a wonderful. They do a lot of. They've done a lot of support for the arts and for history and for the church, and they do it sort of behind the scenes. You know, so this is the first that I'm hearing of this, and this is wonderful. Bravo.
So they're totally understated.
Yes.
They just give the grant and that's it. They don't kind of bang their drum or anything. And it's so you have a combination of the Archdiocese's sense of responsibility towards history, hanging on to every piece of paper, and then the Niarchos Foundation coming along and saying, of course, these things have to preserve. Paper is fragile. Let's make these into PDF files.
Yes, you've made my morning by telling me this. You know, and did they have audio files and video files and things like that?
They've got old VCRs, I think, and of course DVDs, but the earlier stuff, and I think some 8mm film. I think that hasn't been transformed yet into CDs.
Yeah.
It's such a rich trove there because it's really the history of Greek America, because they've got copies of newspapers that people have can't find anywhere else. It's really just amazing.
It's amazing, right? A lot of people don't realize that we have these resources. You know, the Archbishop Yakovos Library here in Brookline, Massachusetts, has an incredible archive of material, and a lot of people don't realize it. So you find yourself there, and you received the blessing from the Archbishop at the time. Did you have any pushback at all as an academic? Did you? No.
None at all. I met other people in the Archdiocese, including Father Alex, who still plays such an important role.
Yes.
They were all open, generous, with giving information, and no one asked to check on me. No one said, well, by the way, okay, what have you been writing? Can we see this? I had no interference of that kind on the part of the Archdiocese. Neither did the Jaharis Foundation want to check up on me. Both these institutions that helped me just gave me free rein.
And that's a beautiful thing. I mean, Alexander, Professor Kitroeff, you have worked it's been a long road, and you've earned that respect, and I'm so pleased that you did this in a partnership with the Greek Orthodox Church in America. So as an immigrant, as an early immigrant, what were your observations? Was the experience of Greek Orthodox culture the same or different from what you experienced in Greece and when you were growing up?
Completely different from Greece, and in fact, somewhat different from my stay in the UK. When I was a graduate student, I was in Oxford, where there is one Greek Orthodox Church which has a service in Greek one week, Slavonic, I think the other week Russian, etc. So there was a kind of multi-ethnic Eastern Orthodoxy I encountered in the UK, and in Greece, of course, it's completely different to England and completely different to the United States, because the church in Greece is how shall I put this? It's taken for granted. It's there.
Yes.
Everyone says they're Orthodox, but of course they don't go to church. So there's a kind of interesting, surreal situation in which everyone would go to church over Easter and to a certain extent over Christmas, but there wouldn't be this regular church going. And in fact, most people also consider themselves secular. And the church in Greece is socially and politically much more conservative, I would say, than the church here in the United States.
Yes, I mean, I think about recently we've been seeing these images of Yakovos, going through the streets during the protests for equality, and that was different, and then you saw the participation then in the church here in America different.
Yes, because I think the church in America is actually drawn into making these social statements because it's so important. It's so important for the Greek Americans. The church here in the United States, and this is what I have to explain to people in Greece. It's not just a church. It's a social institution. It's an educational institution. It runs the schools. It provides social services. It's the main platform for philanthropy through the Ladies Philoptochos.
Yes.
So it has a much broader socio-cultural reach than the church in Greece. Therefore, it's more important and more integrated into society, and more sensitive to change, I would say.
You saw it as really a focal point, right, of Greek American culture. This is yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, I think it is because of its role. It becomes the main institution that has shaped Greek America. It's changed. It's had to assimilate as the Greek Americans have to assimilate. But on the other hand, it's based on a very deep historical tradition, and it balances between the two, and it's a continuous negotiation. But it's done so successfully, and that's proof of the fact that it is so and remains so important in Greek American life.
It is. I mean, it's part of our cultural identity. I mean, undeniably, and yet, in taking on this history, so you mentioned the Orthodox Observer. I want our listeners to know that this is the main publication of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese in America, and I think there was just a recent announcement that this is going to be all archived and now available online. Did you see something about that by any chance?
I saw. Yes, I saw that, and I do believe that it's now going to be only electronic.
Okay.
I may have misread it, but
right.
I think that there's another example of modern, of keeping up with the times. Yes.
Oh yeah, because there's so much history in those pages. And were you interested in? Were you able to do any interviews?
So here's what I did. I had to make a strategic decision because the church is so broad. As I said, it has such a wide reach and involvement in Greek American life. And as a historian, I had to make a kind of do some, one always does a triage-like type of decision. What do I study? I can't do everything, or else this thing will never end. So I decided to look at the clergy laity congresses as a way of understanding, because I was really interested in the relations between church and community. So I wasn't doing, strictly speaking, church history, which there have been some very good books on narrowly speaking church history,
yes.
or the history of Orthodox doctrine. Father Kostandelos, others have written on this, but I wanted to do the interface between church and community. So I thought the clergy laity congresses would be the best way to do it. So I studied those, and I interviewed as many people as I could. I was very fortunate because Father Robert Stephanopoulos of the cathedral in New York
Yes.
was still in New York. I think he's moved now, but he was in New York, and his library was in the cathedral. There's a building attached to the.
Really?
To
And so
we used to. It was wonderful. We used to hang out. I mean,
really? He was a nice
I-
man. I met him when I lived in New York. I
Yeah.
met him. A nice man.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, he was showing me all the books and generously sharing with them. And, half the time I wanted just to sit down and talk to him. And he was also very, very helpful because, you need to interview people, not necessarily to quote what they're saying, because they're going to say much more than one could put on a page. But they give you a sense. They give you the background. They give you the context. And he was absolutely wonderful.
It's such a great thing. And so, is the book available right now?
The book has just come out, yes. So it's available through Cornell University Press and and of course Amazon. Yeah.
Yes, and I know that you are on Facebook. You had actually put. I thank you very much for sending me a flyer that says save 30%. And when I went, it's one of those things I have to tell you because I always want a hardcover. I like holding a book. And we're talking about a book that's 330 pages. This is amazing. And I know I'm going to be going and using it for years. And will you be doing lectures now that the book is coming out or has come out? Will you be doing some lectures, you think, around the country?
Yes, I've already been invited to several places, but because of the current pandemic, things are on hold.
Yeah, I guess I wonder if we can we do it on a Zoom on a town meeting somehow? Can we have a sponsoring organization that would stand up and it would be great.
Because when I do book talks, because I've been doing them. This is fresh on my mind because I've been doing them on my previous book on the Greeks in Egypt. I do a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes,
and
right.
In this day and age, and this is what I've been thinking about for both books. One can do a PowerPoint presentation. I think, and one can Zoom oneself, as it were, sharing one's screen, doing it on a Zoom.
Yes.
And then I think you can post it. So
you can post it. You can even, if you want, if we can get an organization that would sponsor these things, then we could have a follow-up discussion with you. Because I think what a lot of people are saying is we have so much history in our communities. You've taken a great task at presenting the overall history of the Greek Orthodox Church in America, but there's so much of that history that's contained in the local communities, and I think that this is really going to be a foundation of study going forward. Thank you so much. I saw the timeline online. By the way, the book, The Greek Orthodox Church in America, A Modern History, Professor Alexander Kitroeff, and Kitroeff, and it is available now. You can order it and get it, and I'm so excited by this. I really am. I can't tell you, and I look forward to seeing the discussions going forward when you get to speak. Your final chapter in the book. I just saw the index because there's a little preview that's I think from Google Books we can see, and it said the future of the Greek Orthodox Church in America. Is there anything that you can give us as kind of a what do you see?
Yes. You see, they always ask historians, what about the future? And of course, we know the past; we don't know the future.
Yeah.
But I had to. I thought I had to think of that, especially because the book had been accepted by Northern Illinois University Press, But then there was a delay because Northern Illinois University Press was in the process of being incorporated under Cornell University Press. So I had this kind of time in between finishing, and I had time to think about that last chapter and where the church is going forward and how the church is going forward. So the book which is an overview of the history, and I hope it'll make people interested in studying all other aspects deeper. But the general idea of the book is that the church successfully adapts to the American environment and the gradual assimilation of the Greek Americans. But seeing the developments of the past year with the appointment of Archbishop Elpidoforos,
yes,
it's clear to me that now the Greek Orthodox Church in America has to adapt not only to the situation in America, but to the situation more globally. We talk about globalization,
yes, exactly,
transnationalism. The ecumenical patriarchate is becoming more and more important, and now I think the Greek Americans and Greek Orthodox in America have to bear in mind that the church here in America is an important support mechanism for the ecumenical patriarchate, and it has to adapt to the needs of America and the needs of the ecumenical patriarchate.
Yes, absolutely. You know, I thank you again, Professor Kitroeff, Alexander Kitroeff, his new book, The Greek Orthodox Church in America, A Modern History. And this is history in the making. As please try, read this book and attend any talks that we have on it, this discussion, so we can develop our history, our local histories. And but this is going to be the foundation, I think. This is a groundbreaking work. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Meleti. It's a pleasure.
Okay,
Thank you.
We'll be talking soon. Thank you.
Great.
And you are tuned to Grecian Echoes, Mondays with Meleti on WNTN 1550 AM in Boston. We are streaming at GrecianEchoes.com. Grecian Echoes, the longest-running Greek-American radio broadcast program in the country. So pleased that we had Professor Alexander Kitroeff talking about his book, The Greek Orthodox Church in America, A Modern History. It is available now, and we hope that you will go out and look into that. And we have such a rich history here in America. It's a history that stories that haven't been told. Professor Kitroeff just took a monumental task in framing the Greek Orthodox Church in America as really, we've seen it, we can feel it. It's the focal point of our Greek American identity, and I'm so proud for the work that he has done.